No, I thought it was a good story. Okay. I talked to you.
All right, if you have any questions,
what was one moment or maybe a couple moments that just shaped you or went through your mind as you were watching this everybody else at the time?
for me, each time it's horrifying. You know, it's just horrifying to watch that, listen to Kelly screaming continually over and over and over, need help now. That's a really, really bad part. Then, of course, the devastating knees, not chest compressions, in my opinion, that were straps, the elbows that were delivered full of blood, I mean, all of it adds in.
What was your reaction to the fact that they were kind of suggesting in there that his cause of death was not the beating, but perhaps the treatment that he received afterwards? What was your reaction?
You know, I'm going to let my attorney Darrell answer that if he wants to. To me, it's nonsense.
Absolutely.
It is really nonsense when you consider the amount of beating that Kelly took that day. And then for them now to blame the emergency medical personnel and say maybe there was a mishap with them, and there wasn't. But even if there was, they're the ones that caused it. The medical personnel would not have been there had they not chosen to beat Kelly Thomas to death that evening. So for them now to come in and say, oh, maybe this was because of CPR, or maybe there were other natural causes, maybe he had a liver or a bad heart because he's 37 years old, by the way, and so maybe he shouldn't have had that. It's just ridiculous for them to point the finger elsewhere when they should be pointing fingers at themselves.
I do believe much of the conversation between the officers was an attempt to cover up.
During what part of the conversation?
Talking about the flag brigade.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We talked about that earlier. You know, oh, I've never been involved in a fight like this in my life. Oh my God, please, come on, all of them on, you know. And you all watched it. You will watch it. Kelly didn't swing on it. What kind of cop, 10 years, 15 years, whatever it is, has never been in a fight in a town that's full of bars to begin with, and has never been in a fight so bad, but there was not even a punch thrown by Kelly. So it's all like you're saying, it's made up to make Kelly look so bad, and the officers the victims. That's what they have to do here, because they don't have anything else to do.
Remember, initially, their spokesperson for the Portland Police Department said two of their officers had suffered broken bones as a result of this outrageous conduct by Kelly. In reality, we know that those were lies too. And yet, the first thing they did when EMT arrived, they said, look, I've got a scratch here and a bruise there and a bruise here. Can you look at this before you bother with Kelly Thomas, who's laying there?
Which they didn't even say. Which they didn't even say. The fire captain, he looked over and seen Kelly and goes, what about him? The officers are like, what about this scratch? The officers never said Kelly's laying there dying, or that he was even there. They never acknowledged that.
Every one of those bruises were caused by their overreaction, by their striking at Kelly. With their elbows and their knees and their fists, and with their batons. And yet, they act like they're the victims here, and if anybody did anything wrong, it must be the emergency medical personnel, and not them. And yet, they're the ones being charged with serious crimes, and more of them ought to be charged with serious crimes. It's just outrageous for them to suggest that the emergency medical personnel that were there to perform life-saving procedures may have caused the broken ribs. It's true that the doctor said these are some of the things to consider, that in and of themselves, the broken ribs didn't cause death. When you consider the broken ribs along with the contusions to the lungs and the bleeding inside his lungs that caused him to aspirate and drown in his own blood is what eventually caused him to die. It's the anoxia, the deprivation of oxygen in the blood that went to the brain. It will cause Kelly Thomas to finally expire 5 days later because they had ruled him to have been brain dead as of the 5 years after the season.
Ron, why do you think none of the cops, I mean, there's a lot of them there, how come no one stepped up and said, hey, wait a minute, back off? I mean, was this just a pack mentality feeding on itself?
Absolutely. You know, their brotherhood, one does something wrong, they all did. And I'm not suggesting all cops are that way and bad at all. I'm not saying that at all. This particular group fed off each other. It was like a shark feeding frenzy. They went to town and they didn't stop. As soon as Wolf delivered that first blow on Kelly, as he's standing with his hands up going, hey, hey, let's not do this, guys. And Wolf hit him anyway. It was on from there. And the beating never, ever stopped until Kelly was just motionless.
And it's very telling when you hear Officer Cicinelli say he had no other options left but to take his taser and beat the hell out of Kelly Thomas's face.
His own words.
His mission straight out of the record.
That's in your transcripts that you have. That's what he said.
And yet, you know, they act like this was all brought on to Kelly because of his conduct, because he fought. All he did was fight for his life. He tried to get away from these brutes, and he got a severe beating for it. What was the crime that he committed that night?
Nothing. Not even a crime.
They investigated.
Nothing.
They found that he had done nothing wrong. And he just pled for his dad to come help him. Because thinking, dad's a cop, was a cop, grandpa was a cop, great-grandpa was a cop, uncles are cops. These cops would have hurt me. But they did. They beat him to death.
Ron, do you think in your mind there's any way Kelly, I mean, before he was, all the blows were given to him, is there any way he could have made this out of there alive, or was it predestined from the get-go?
The only way Kelly could have made it out of there alive was if they slipped and fell chasing him and he was able to get away and hide somewhere. That's the only way. They were after him. But because of the injuries that they gave him, obviously there's no way he was going to survive.
And for them to later suggest here today that maybe the swelling in the face wasn't as a result of the broken ethmoid process, the broken nasal process, the broken zygomatic process, and all the bleeding was all because the doctors fed him with IV fluid, and the IV fluid is what swelled him up. The doctor put it very well and said, sure, the IV fluid will cause the body to swell, especially in areas where there are broken bones, but the underlying cause is their action, their brutality visited upon this woman's man.
On your moment, the video of the bleeding, some people can buy it for them. Now that's out of the general public. It's going to be the response.
I think, very good question. You know, I knew that members of Kelly's Army, supporters, had not seen it. I knew how they would react. I mean, it's horrifying. And I think people watching this with the audio that really can watch it, and I don't know how it's going to be broadcast out there, but if when they see that, the kicks, the screams, the begging, all of this, they're going to be horrified at home, wherever they see this too. And it's going to be shown for some time. I'm sure it's already on YouTube or wherever. You know, it's horrifying. I've had folks come up to me today, 20 years in the business, never seen anything like this. You know, covering major crimes. I've never seen anything like this before. It is horrifying.
Kelly's repeated begging for mercy, repeated offers to, look, dude, I'm sorry.
I just want some air.
Repeatedly, over and over again, and then screaming from pain. Even though we don't see a lot of this on the video itself because they're out of the video's view, you know what's happening because we know what the end result is. And when he's calling out for his dad and he can't breathe anymore and he's just saying, help me, over and over again, there was no mercy shown to this son, none at all.
Laura, what struck you the most in court today?
What struck me is their attempt to try to blame the medical personnel. Their attempt to try to suggest it wasn't the beating by bad cops, that there was maybe some mishap at the hospital. It's insulting to the medical profession. And, you know, these doctors are not lawyers and they're not used to this forensic stuff. And, you know, when somebody like Barnett and other cop detectives that come in here, bad cop detectives, and cross-examine these doctors, they have no chance. And all of a sudden they're making the doctor sound like he's suggesting that Kelly Thomas died of natural causes. It just happened to coincide with a severe beating that broke numerous bones in his body and made him bleed to death. It just happened to coincide because he had bad heart or bad liver. It just makes no sense.
Which he did. He didn't have bad heart or bad liver. I will tell you that the folks at UCI worked continuously on it, tirelessly. They were fantastic.
Yeah, we want to thank the DA's office
Yes.
for having the resolve and doing what they've been doing and going after these bad cops. And we hope that they'll keep looking at the other cops that were involved. And we think that they will be bringing further charges. We hope they will, because it seems like these officers will be pointing the finger at other officers that may not be a part of this case now. And we want to stop them from doing that. And if they were involved, they ought to be charged too.
Court proceedings aside, Rod, in there, you weren't even there, but he's screaming out to you specifically. Briefly describe your relationship with him, or what you felt. Maybe just, you're not there, but he's screaming out to you.
Yeah, that's my sensitive nerve right there. Yeah. Yeah, from childhood on, I mean, with all my kids, his mom, extremely close. Extremely close, tight bond, and he knew I'd be doing the same. When my daughter said, Dad's always the one that it gets us out of trouble, that saves us. I dealt with his illness with him for 15 years. Very, very close with him with that. You know, his mom worked with him. But again, I'm the one that would have saved him. Very close.
When he opened his eyes in the hospital, was there any other reaction other than that? Or?
I must tell you, I'm not disputing that doctor for a second. I respect him completely. Maybe his mother's seen it, but I never seen his eyes open, and I will tell you, for 3 straight days, his left eye was so swollen it could not physically be open.
But realize that Glasgow Coma scale of 3 to 6 is really no significance at all. If he was at a 13 or 14 or 15, then you could say, oh, okay, he was alert, he was able to actually make sense of what's going on around him. All they're telling us is that he was basically brain dead. At some point, it seemed like he had to open his eye.
Like a reflex.
And that's it, maybe some kind of reflex. And even that gives you a point or two. But otherwise, a 6 is close to death. 3, you know, as long as your heart's beating, you got a 3. So at a 6, he's close to death as he was, and he never recovered, because that brain had already died by the time they got him to the hospital. It was already deprived of the nutrition, that oxygen that brings to your brain. And it was all because of the bleeding. It was all because of the aspiration or the sucking in of blood from all the broken bones, because as he's laying in his back, all that blood is just gushing down his throat, straight into his lungs. He drowned in his own blood.
So were you there continuously the whole time and you didn't really see any change?
No, actually, his mother was there continuously the whole time.
But there was no change from when they brought him in?
I was out looking for bad guys. Seriously, I was out looking for bad guys.
There was no physical change. There was no sign that he may live from this. They pulled the plug, the hospital did, because they had already declared him brain dead in the state of California. Once you're brain dead, they do not have to give you any further care. And it was futile. It was absolutely futile.
It was 5 days.
5 days. Well, after 4 days, they already determined he was brain dead. On the 5th day, they confirmed it again through further testing. That's when they said it's a waste of time. It's a waste of time. Well, thank you, everyone. And we'll see you.